listen to all the quarterbacks that we're not really sure where they're going to be playing or what the situation is going to be as we go ahead and look towards the future. In fact, I want to start off with you here right now with this question. Now that we know Brady is going out there, and now that we know Mahomes is going out there, and we got 2 weeks to think about this matchup, how many teams are you 100% confident in the NFL that you know who their starting quarterback is going to be next year? I would submit to you that this is the fewest guaranteed starting quarterbacks that we have ever seen in the history of the NFL. By which I mean, you don't really know who is going to be taking the snaps going forward for very many teams at all. And in fact, I'm going to run through with you right now and set the number that I believe we 100%. And look, when I say 100%, I should say like 99.9%. Somebody could get injured in a non-football way. You could have somebody pull an Andrew Luck and just decide to retire unexpectedly out of nowhere. That's always a possibility, right? So let's presume that that's not in play. I mean, guys, stay relatively healthy, no surprise retirements. I think there's no more than maybe 10 or 11 teams that know who their starting quarterback is next year. Let me run through them for you, okay? And I'm going to start in the AFC. Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, you know who the starter's going to be, right? Do you know who the starter's going to be for the Dolphins? Because I don't think we do, all right? So do we know who the starter's going to be for the New England Patriots? No. Do we know who the starter's going to be for the Jets? I think if you look in the AFC East right now, the only team that's very confident that they know who their starting quarterback is the Bills. Now, do I think Tua is probably going to be starting for the Dolphins? Yes. Do I think maybe Sam Darnold starts for the Jets? Maybe. Maybe they draft Justin Fields. I really don't know. But Buffalo's the only team in the AFC East that I feel confident about. How about the AFC North? Don't feel confident Ben Roethlisberger's 100% going to be back. I really don't. Baltimore Ravens, I'd be stunned if Lamar Jackson is not their starting quarterback. Cleveland Browns, I'd be stunned if Baker Mayfield's not their quarterback. I'll actually give you the Bengals, even though he's injured. But I feel like if Joe Burrow is back, he's going to be the starting quarterback. So I'm going to go ahead and count him. So the AFC North, we're fairly confident. Titans, Ryan Tannehill is going to be the starter. We don't know who the starter is going to be for the Colts. We don't know who the starter is going to be for the Houston Texans. And we really don't know who the starter is going to be for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We think it's going to be Trevor Lawrence. But they could decide to trade that pick. Who knows what might happen? So we're still sitting at 5. Kansas City Chiefs, Mahomes is back. 6. Do we feel good about Derek Carr at the Raiders? Maybe, although I'm not 100% committed. We feel like Justin Herbert is a definite starter for the Chargers. I know right now that the Broncos feel like Drew Lock is their guy, but I'm not sold on it. So just in the AFC, over half of the league, even being generous with the decision with Joe Burrow, 9 teams in the AFC not sure definitively who their starting quarterback is next year. Okay? What about the NFC? Washington, no idea. Giants, I'm going to go ahead and say Daniel Jones, even though I think it's a little bit wobbly. We don't know what the Cowboys are going to do. We don't know what the Eagles definitively, I don't think, are going to do, although you would think that Carson Wentz is their guy. Green Bay, I'm not 100% sure. We know if Aaron Rodgers is still there, he's going to be starting. Don't know what the Bears are going to do. I think the Vikings don't have a lot of choices still with Kirk Cousins' contract. We know that the Lions, we don't know. So we're at 9 starters. We don't know who the Saints starter is. Brady's going to be back with the Bucks. We don't know who Carolina's starter is. And I'm not 100% sold on the Falcons being 100% committed to Matt Ryan. Seattle, we know Russell Wilson's going to be back. The Rams, I don't feel comfortable there. The Arizona Cardinals, I feel like Kyler Murray's back. The San Francisco 49ers, I don't know. 12 teams that I just named, I feel like I know who the starters are going to be next year. 20 teams in the 32-league NFL, I don't know. Adam Schefter's pretty plugged in. He said he thought over 18 teams would have a new starting quarterback in 2021. I just ran through all of them, and I gave you 12. That means there's 20. I don't know what's going to happen. I would submit we have never had that much uncertainty. Dub, you just heard me run through all of those different teams, putting them into context. Was there anybody that jumped out, anybody that you thought, hey, this is crazy, they're definitely going to be there? Or did you agree pretty much with my 32, the 12 that I named?
I'm pretty much in agreement. And when you break it down like this, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 divisions where there's only one team that really knows who's going to be taking
How
snaps.
wild is that?
You got the NFC South, obviously with Tom Brady. The NFC East, which is not even that strong of a certainty with Daniel Jones. I mean, just say that out loud.
I'm being generous to say that he's definitely going to start. I think I'm being generous with Joe Burrow, too. Not because I think that the Bengals are uncertain about Joe Burrow, just because he's coming back from a fairly severe knee injury, and it's possible he won't be starting week 1 because of that. But I'm counting both those guys.
Yeah, and then the NFC North as well, with Kirk Cousins seeming to be the only quote-unquote sure thing. And then the AFC East with Josh Allen and the Bills. That's the only sure thing in the AFC East. So that's 4 divisions where you can really only say with confidence one team per division knows who their quarterback's going to be right now.
I think you got to go AFC South, too. Because the AFC South, to me, might be the most wide-open division of all. Now, Trevor Lawrence might be starting week 1, but Ryan Tannehill, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson, and the Colts don't have a quarterback at all.
That's a division where it could look just so entirely different next year as opposed to this year. That might be one of the most fascinating divisions in all of football next year.
How do you bet it?
Exactly.
In any way. I mean, the Titans have to be the favorite because they won the division already this past year, but also because they're the only team you can say with certainty, hey, that quarterback's coming back, and he was decent last year. Now, I think you could change things a lot. Look, if the Texans get things worked out with Deshaun Watson, and let's say the Colts go and grab Matthew Stafford, or God forbid if they got Aaron Rodgers or found some way to make an unbelievable move there. But I feel like the Colts are going to be pretty good. And if you're the Jags, I feel like you have to be pretty confident about your potential going forward with everything surrounding Trevor Lawrence. But I'm not sure that we have ever seen this many moving parts in play at the quarterback position in the history of the NFL. I'm really not. I don't believe we've ever seen anything like this. And so that's going to be wild to think about.
I'm also fascinated heading up to the draft because we mentioned all these quarterbacks. We mentioned Adam Schefter's tweet, the long list of quarterbacks with uncertainty. How many of these teams are going to decide to use their first-round draft pick on a quarterback versus who's going to decide to take a shot on one of those guys, like Matt Stafford, for instance?
Yeah, not only that. I mean, what about some teams that have got multiple quarterbacks? Like, what are the Colts going to do with Jacoby Brissett? Because those guys are theoretically ending up on the marketplace too, right? Like, what in the world's going to happen with Cam Newton? What is going to happen with Jameis Winston?
Marcus Mariota.
What about Taysom Hill? What about a guy who's only in his second year? You know, we were talking earlier in the show about how I'm furious if I'm Aaron Rodgers, even more so given how close we came to going to the Super Bowl, that we drafted Jordan Love. But what about if you're Carson Wentz and you've got Jalen Hurts sitting right behind you now? Like, what are you thinking if you are the starting quarterback there? I guess you could argue, hey, Jalen Hurts is going to be sort of the Swiss Army knife of the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're going to use him like they used Taysom Hill down in New Orleans. But that partially made sense because Drew Brees was getting older. If I'm Carson Wentz, I don't want Jalen Hurts sitting behind me with all those Philly fans as soon as I start playing the least bit poorly. I don't want them booing me and demanding what happened this past season, which is Jalen Hurts coming back in. Right? So I'm not sure what the Eagles are going to do at their quarterback position, but I would be super nervous going forward with the way that that's going to shake out. It just seems like a total mess to me.
And what about the 49ers, too? That's a team we haven't even mentioned today.
It's a great point. And the 49ers have to be somewhat similar to the Rams, where they've been in the Super Bowl with Jimmy G, just like the Rams have been in the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. But do you really feel like that's the guy who's going to get you back to the Super Bowl or going to win you a Super Bowl? I don't think there's any way you could possibly believe that. But simultaneously, I think you have to be looking at what happened with the Bucs and Tom Brady, and I think Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay have to be thinking, if we got the right quarterback, we got a Super Bowl caliber team here. And we can stay healthy, by the way, certainly in the case of the 49ers. This is one of the best off seasons coming up that I can ever remember in the history of the NFL.